Hi, I'm Bradley Barth with SE Media, and I'm here today with Julie Smith. She's the Executive Director of the Identity Defined Security Alliance, or the IDSA. Julie, I really appreciate you being here today, and I want to start off by asking you about the new research report that the IDSA has just released. So for starters, you interviewed and surveyed a myriad of professionals in the identity and security space, and it seems like almost everyone said that they were investing in identity in one form or another. But 64% actually said that it was a top 3 priority for them. So what's driving the intense interest right now in identity?
Yeah, so thanks for having me to start off with, Bradley. Yeah, I mean, this is our fifth research report that we've done since the beginning of the IDSA as a sort of standalone nonprofit organization focused on educating security professionals about the importance of securing digital identities. And we've consistently seen organizations reporting 79% last year had experienced an identity-related breach. And this year it's 84% had experienced an identity-related breach. So Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report recently came out and said the number one path for hackers into an organization is through a compromised credential. So it's more important now than ever to make sure that you're protecting your identities and the identities that are being used to access your assets and your data within your organization. So I think that's really what's driving the investment, not just across technologies, traditional identity and access management technologies, but also more identity-defined security approaches. So starting to combine identity and security technologies together to provide additional context around authentication, authorization, and all those things that we traditionally think of identity and access management.
Now, you said that compromised credentials are one of the major reasons that breaches have been occurring. Can you offer some insight into how some of these credentials are being stolen? What kind of mistakes are organizations making that are resulting in compromised credentials?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, right? I think it's certainly if you tie it back to what type of breach they had, phishing pops up to the top of the list, privileged access that wasn't properly managed pops up to the top of the list. I think if you look at some of the most high-profile breaches that have happened in the last couple of years, and our research sort of supports this, orphan accounts. So only like 51% of the organizations deprovision accounts when an employee leaves the organization, but only 26% of it do it consistently, right? And so those accounts make it out onto the dark web. They still have access, even those employees have left the organization. Those are fair game for hackers to grab. The other, I would say, is that a little less than half of the organizations have multi-factor authentication in place. Again, if a compromised credential falls into the hands of an attacker without some sort of additional protections, like an MFA, an attacker can use that valid credential to get unauthorized access to the system. So, those are, I think, some of the ways that that organizations are leaving themselves open.
You've been tracking trends in identity for a long time. What about this report was perhaps the most surprising finding?
Oh, that's a good question. So this year we asked the people that took the survey, which were IT security and identity people, how protective of your own work passwords are you? And we found that probably 40%, I believe the numbers are, said, oh, I do all kinds of good things around identity hygiene. But that still leaves 60% of people that are not protecting their passwords. And then the other thing we wanted to find out is the level of awareness in an organization. So think about the technology side of things, but also think about culture. And what we found when executives are talking about password security and protecting identities at the highest level to their employees, even 72% of security professionals do a better job of protecting their own passwords when there is a security-minded culture. And that translated for us in this survey to executives talking about how important it is to protect your identities. So I think it's the thing that was really interesting is it's not just about organizations making technology investments, but we are starting to see organizations talk about it at an executive level outside of the security and IT organization, and that does have a difference. That does make an impact on how people protect their passwords.
Now, this report also identified a few key difference makers that, if executed properly, could result in better identity management for everyone. And those three things were identified as the adoption of multi-factor authentication, also more timely reviews of privileged access, and finally, better training, because a lot of the folks who took the survey indicated that training currently right now on identity matters is rather insufficient. So let's brainstorm right now. Let's solve everybody's problems right here. How do we fix those three things? How do we drive more adoption of MFA? How do we encourage more timely and frequent checking on privileged access status? And how do you improve the training process?
Yeah, I mean, I think MFA, it's an implementation challenge to a certain extent, and hopefully this report makes people more aware that it needs to be at the top of the list. It's interesting, you have conversations with folks that have been in this identity space for a long time, and the problems that organizations are facing today are the problems that we've been talking about over and over again. It's sort of like what's old is new again, and new again, and new again, and new again. We keep talking about it. So I think the technologies are in a better place than they ever have been before. The fact that 64% of organizations identify identity as a top 3 priority in their security program is a good indicator. I think, as I mentioned before, having executives raise awareness and create a security culture is going to help significantly. And then, privilege access, there's technology solutions out there that I think, again, are easier to deploy and different approaches to it that those privilege access, those privilege accounts are the keys to the kingdom, and so organizations just need to do a better job of protecting them. And I think just raising awareness through this research report is one way to pop it up on the priority list for security executives. We can interpret the data in lots of different ways, but the reality is at least 84% of the companies out there believe that they've been, reported that they had an identity-related breach. So it should send a signal to security leaders that identity needs to be a top priority for them if it's not already.
All right, excellent point and fascinating research. Thank you again so much, Julie, for being with us today. That's Julie Smith from the Identity Defined Security Alliance. I'm Bradley Barth with SC Media, and until next time, have a safe day online.